Hmm. I heard a ding on the phone. Was that a notification?
Well, that was a notice on Twitter. How about
Oh,
that?
yeah. See, we're on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and then of course, I do the podcast audio version after we get through with the show. I usually try to do it within about 30 minutes of the close of the show. Sometimes it's the next morning, and well, like last week or week before, I was like a week late. But anyway, here we
Now
are
that is
again.
weird. Here we are again, and that is weird. I am tweeting our show
I just
on
got a
Twitter.
retweet. Yeah, I just got a retweet notice. Good, look at you.
How,
Go ahead.
how about that? How about that? So,
Yeah,
there's a few folks starting to trickle in, and
yeah.
I don't know.
Let us know in the comments if the audio sounds good, and if you can hear us. Is there anybody out there?
Yeah, how is y'all's week going? Anything new? Check
Hey,
in.
did you notice the title of the show that I gave us? One and the
I
same. Show number 151.
I did, and that's eerily uh, familiar to me for some reason. It's like I've heard those words before.
Your former, well, I guess I shouldn't say former. Your friendly neighborhood city councilman at large, Chris Smith, said when he came on the last show, he was a little, let's just say, irked at the beginning. But he said we're one and the same,
Well, we're
or
one and the
or it's
same,
one
and
and the same, or however he phrased it. I have to go back and look at the show, but anyway,
well, I don't know. Barry Butler says the video is awful.
get a better connection, Barry. The video's fine on our end.
It's the best it's ever been for me.
Yeah, I know it's like crystal clear with you. So, but thanks for the feedback, Barry. I'm gonna double check it just to make sure. But continue with one and the same and Chris Smith.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know if you're digging me into another hole here, but you name this show. But hey, my good buddy down the street, aka Councilman Chris Smith, we still haven't talked. So I don't know. Maybe he is still
Oh,
big. He is still big mad at you, and by virtue of being big mad at you, that makes him big mad at me still.
I
So
mean, all over the word softball. And look here, like I said, we'll dwell on this for another minute. Thanks for appreciate that feedback. Carrie Barry says, "Getting better, get better looking host." Well, that may be the case, Barry. Renee Hall is watching. She says, "Looks great to her on AT&T." Okay, uh,
we,
but
we
all
gotta
over
work.
the
We
word.
gotta work. We gotta work with what we got. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
exactly. But all over the word softball when arguably we help drive at least maybe a couple of more viewers to their show. I mean, I know I watched the Sobo Live podcast or video cast and or live video, whatever, and I think you did as well. So they at least got two more viewers from us.
Yeah, I don't know what to make about all that. Like I said, I didn't even know it was an issue until after it was had become an issue, and
Well,
I thought
I
it. I
kind of
thought
didn't give you any warning on that one, but
well, I mean, look, Chris is right in the standpoint of, I mean, look, well, one and the same. I mean, if you put it out there, I'm gonna. I mean, we have this understanding. If you put something out there and you're wrong, I'm gonna call you out, same as you're gonna call me out.
right.
And I watched the interview, and I mean, they don't do political. Um, Although we do political, and
Hmm.
I don't think we were hard.
No, we
We're a little,
treated Chris fairly after having to
yeah.
egg him on to get him on to do the interview. But anyway,
We had to make
that's
him big,
past.
big, big, big mad.
I guess so. Well, anyway, if y'all want to know what the heck we're talking about, if you missed last week's show, we had a great interview with City Councilman at Large Chris Smith, and I posted that interview as its own standalone video. So we encourage you to watch the whole show, but if you just want to go see that part of it, you can go back and either watch that segment of the show. It's back in Facebook and on YouTube. And well, no, I don't think I posted that one on YouTube and Twitter yet. But anyway, you can go back on Facebook and watch it, and I'll put it up on YouTube and also put up the podcast. I did put that up. So anyway, I'm
You know what?
rambling.
And hey, I still haven't even heard from Brian Hammonds. Still, and
Paging Brian Hammonds. Paging
I
Brian
even on
Hammonds.
Friday, I was walking his subdivision collecting signatures for term limits. Of course, I didn't knock on his door, but every door in that little subdivision, I was there walking. I mean, and I did see an hour later he was downtown, at some event downtown. I mean, man, it would have been nice if he'd have just drove around a subdivision and come in high five and said, "Good job." Boy, that would have sure made me feel good and gave me some encouragement. But no, you know what? I mean, he a little busy, I would assume.
Well, I've been kind of acting like or at least following the lead of our elected officials and skipping out on the walk in the neighborhoods too. Although, in my defense, I've been rewiring my boat and installing a new depth finder and
I
helping the high
know, I
school
know.
kids and the junior every excuse in the book I can not to walk those neighborhoods, just like our city councilmen and other elected officials.
Well, there's people who talk and there's people who do. And I'll just leave it right there, Rex.
With that said, let's go ahead and go to our countdown. Folks, that'll give you a chance to make you some popcorn if you want, get you a stiff drink. You all know the deal. Tag some friends, text some friends, let them know we're live. We're going to talk about Robert Berry and the Louisiana Supreme Court basically telling the Bossier judges to do their job and, well, actually follow the law like we've been preaching forever. We've got to talk about the police jury in this water drama. Is there more of that?
More water drama. I mean, the village water system and the Bellevue water system. I mean, we got a little bit on both, but they had a police jury meeting this week. And hey, I don't know, there was some citizens went up there and put their foot down. And you know what the police jury did?
Told them
They
to stick
pulled
it?
out they pulled out the police jury card. Now, if
Oh,
if you
interesting.
don't know when they pull out, you know how like when you play rook, somebody's got their
Mm-hmm.
rook card, or
Mm-hmm.
they well, the police jury's got their own card,
Oh,
and
really?
I got I got to tell you, they were all trying to play the same card, all of them, every one of them.
Imagine that. All right, and then I just corrected it because I had Jeff Sadow's name is Shadow, the stupid autocorrect. But anyway, I just corrected it. So we got a follow up to an article that Sadow put out, so we'll talk about that and more in about 2.5 or 3 minutes. Here we go with our countdown. What say you, Mr. Lowry? Good to
Go
go?
for it.
All right, here we go, folks.
They feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
In all honesty, we try to lay low a little bit because of the fear that we would not be able to camp there.
And I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Hello, everybody. I don't think I've ever done a video before on here, but yeah, I wanted to tell y'all what frustrates me a little bit about permits.
Cockroach of the week is, drumroll please, Allie Feaster Smith.
We can't be apathetic about what's going on in our state. We have to all pull up our bootstraps and get on top of this. So you're right. There's a problem out there. I mean, and man, you can see it everywhere.
Well, look, we have allowed government to become our wherewithal to everything.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
You're about to be killed by a Zamboni, or you're gonna die in 5 minutes.
Hello. You still there? You still there?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, I don't know what the heck happened. Huh. Let's see. I really don't know what just happened.
Oh, well, I don't know either. I didn't sense anything.
Ah,
Dog's gone wild, Larry James Hawkins.
yeah, that's one way. Okay, so somehow our video. Let me try something real quick. I'm gonna go back to the countdown real quick. I'll be right back. Hold on, folks.
Just, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
I don't know what happened. We just went berserk. Anyway,
Well,
we missed the part about the ads. Thanks to Pelican Training and Consulting, Julie Ferris, Acadiana Mortgage, David B. Womack, and of course my deal Smarter Geek, and way over there Outdoor News. Okay, now we're done.
well, hey, did you know there was a 100-year event in Bossier City today?
100-year event, really? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Educate me on this 100-year event.
It sure enough was. If you get cut 1 and 2 rolling, today Maggio Grocery had an anniversary.
Oh, okay, cool.
They had their 100-year anniversary for being in
Mhm.
business, and with the chamber, you see Lisa Johnson there in that image.
Yeah.
They had a ribbon cutting for their 100-year anniversary, and
Oh,
you you see
let's
Vince and his
see.
lovely wife there, and you see them having the ribbon cutting.
Yeah, well, cool. Good for them. I knew their grocery store had been there, business had been there for a long time. Didn't realize it was 100 years.
Yeah, congratulations to the Maggios. I mean, I know that is an achievement that not everybody makes, but I mean, 100 years is a pretty amazing thing. And you know, we talked about it on a previous show, and something that the Maggios do down there in their subdivision. Like Vince and Sharon putting the dumpsters there around the community down there, and hauling off all the trash on their own. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, that is that is community servants right there.
Yeah, I don't know the Maggios very well, but they seem like good people, and obviously they've been in business and supported the community for apparently a long time. So, yeah, good for them.
They are about Bossier City, I can tell you that for sure.
Okay, so now that we have talked about the 100-year event in Bossier, what shall we dive right off into? Because I'm kind of halfway following the notes as we go along, as usual.
Well, believe it or not, I'm getting text messages already, and the show's not even started good. So our notes are kind of jumbled up. So we're going to go to the Cypress District because the Supreme Court of Louisiana put their foot down on, I'm going to say, not only the 26 JDC, but also the Second Circuit, because the Second Circuit affirmed the 26 JDC. So basically, the Supreme Court just put a thumping on all of them. Did they or did they not?
Yeah, they pretty much kicked both cases back to their respective courts. Let's see, I think our good friend Charles Jacobs. Where have I heard that name? Oh yeah, he's the city attorney now. But they kicked both cases back. One was Charles Jacobs, and was the other one Charles Smith, I believe, was the judge on the other one. Basically,
Right.
kicked both of them back and said, "Hey, y'all got to redo this, guys."
But was it really on Charles Smith and Charles Jacobs? I mean, did they really? I mean, did they do anything that egregious, or were they just doing their job?
Well, uh, I suppose that would. Boy, you're trying to drag me into a hole. That I suppose that would depend on the definition of job and who they were working for. But either way,
Oh,
I would say as judges, they absolutely didn't follow the law And we've covered extensively
Now,
some of the shenanigans, but
have we covered it really extensively? We've covered
we
some
have.
things, some
We've
lightweight
covered
things, but we really
some.
haven't got into the heavy things. Like, did we ever get really deep into like a district attorney's car being drove off into a gully by someone who was not an employee of the district attorney? Did we really dig into that? You know,
Well, I mean,
from an attorney off of Airline Drive, and who has a stable of lawyers there. That, I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, did we
well,
ever really dig into all that? I mean, I wonder if we dug into some of those other attorneys there.
no,
I
we didn't
mean,
really dig into that, but we have been pretty extensively into the whole Cypress District and Robert Berry issue. And bear with me for just a second. I'm going to try something. It may kick a video up and I may have to stop it. Hold on. Okay, good.
well,
It did not.
something else I want to say. So for those watching, I mean, I see, around 70 something folks across the different platforms, but if for those of you that you may be thinking, well, hey, okay, they're talking about Robert Berry and the Cypress District. Well, that doesn't necessarily apply to me. For those of you that have watched the show for a long time, I mean, you know what I'm about to say, and you know why I'm saying this, because the majority of you are paying taxes for the Cypress District. That's why it's important. And so, for a
Yeah.
lot of you that hadn't watched the show in the past, because we hadn't covered this subject in the past, 9 times out of 10, you're paying taxes to pay for the Cypress District as well. So this is your money.
Yeah.
All these shenanigans are being played with, right?
Right, and I used to know the number off the top of my head, but it's something like 80% or more of the precincts in Bossier Parish pay the millage for the Cypress District, which I think is at 1.54 mils. I may be wrong on that. Somebody correct me in the show notes. Like I said, I used to know all that off the top of my head when we were covering it all the time. But yeah, the vast majority of people in Bossier Parish pay taxes to the Cypress District, whether you use the Cypress Park or Cypress Lake or Black Bayou Lake at all. You're paying millage to them.
Yeah, and I would point out that renewal is coming up again in the near future,
Yes, it is.
and the voters are going to have a decision to make whether or not they want to continue funding a board that represents. I got to ask myself, whose interest, because I do recall, in fact, I looked at it today, a video where the law firm for the Cypress District was railing about, that it's their property. They paid for it. he was telling you've had your chance. You can't ask questions at a meeting. You can't remember all
Right.
that.
Oh yeah, we've got the videos and we've published plenty of that. And you know what? I want to start out, so I'm going to go ahead and play this video. So this is kind of going back in time to one of the Bossier Parish police jury meetings, during which Renee Hall was speaking, and the parish attorney, Patrick Jackson, made an interesting statement. So let's go back in time and let me hit publish and see if I can get this deal to play.
Wait a minute. Did I see Mark Smith comment? No, I'm looking.
Not
No,
yet.
no, I
Not
hadn't
yet.
seen Mark Smith comment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah.
We'll see, but let me see if I can get this to work because I had to switch videos around, blah, blah, blah. All right, here we go.
Last time you came, you had a letter that gave the district attorney so much time to bring a lawsuit over the subject. That's the lawsuit.
So what does this mean? Does this mean
That the district attorney has asked a court to determine whether the attorney general is correct or not.
Did you all, and we've covered this before, so we're going to cover it again. This may be rewind for some of y'all. But did you hear what he said right there? Whether to see whether the attorney general is correct or not. No, Patrick. We said then, and I'm saying it again, that was not the purpose of the suit. The purpose of the suit was to get Robert Berry out of there for dual office holding, and all you guys on the police jury just ignored it.
Now, you're echoing a little bit. I don't know why, but I mean, the police jury, and to a lot of folks, the police jury, a lot of people pled to the police jury to, do something because Robert Berry was the police jury's appointee out there. And they disregarded it. I can tell you, I brought it up at a Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee meeting where two police jurymen, Juliana Parks and Doug Rimmer, are on, and they didn't want to touch it. They wanted to let the courts work it out. They didn't want to take a position or make a decision or whatever. I can't remember exactly. I'll have to go back and pull the video. I can pull it. So if Juliana, you want to throw a rock and say, "Oh, I'm lying" or whatever, I can go pull it if we like. But they wouldn't do anything. Philip Rogers. Remember the little meeting in the church up there at Benton was kind of, when the Cypress, what was the name of the Cypress group? Friends of Cypress Black Bayou.
Yeah.
He was, Philip Rogers was all, when he was running, he was all on board with doing something about the park. But then once he was elected, no.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Can't touch it.
Can't touch it.
Oh, yeah. But he and I even got into it at one of their meetings that one evening. And anyway, yeah, that's when I changed. That's when I started to change my tune about Philip Rogers right then.
Well, Philip got on the parish health program, so he's got his insurance, so he's good to go. But the question remains, was the AG wrong or was the AG not wrong?
Well, interestingly,
all the judges and the ADAs were saying, "Oh, Jeff Landry, you're wrong. AG's office, you're wrong. He's not dual office holding."
Yeah, right. Okay, so drum roll, please. Here's a screenshot, and I've got it set to publish at 9 p.m. or after we get done with the show tonight. Some more with the links to the Louisiana Supreme Court's rulings, both rulings that came out and were published today, so you'll be able to go back and view that. But what I want to show you right now is this is the one, well, this is one of the ones, but I've got it highlighted here, and you might not can see it or if you're listening to it, but they say that, given this authority, Berry, in conjunction with his fellow commissioners, quote, has the power to appoint and remove the Water District Executive Director. And this is where the Louisiana Supreme Court dismantled the 26 JDC and Robert Berry's good old boys network attorneys. This is where they dismantled the ruling on that. The Supreme said, the possession of this power, whether exercised or not, implicates the public trust concerns of the dual office holding law and violates the prohibition of subsection 42:64A1. The statute contains no language suggesting this violation is rectified by Berry abstaining from the board's selection and oversight of the executive director. Similarly, Berry's authority over the executive director, being himself, which is statutorily granted, cannot be divested by a majority vote of the board. So what does that mean? Well, the board's whole argument was that, oh, well, it's okay because, Robert, abstains from voting or doesn't vote whenever we talk about the executive director. That was their whole argument. And it's how the good old boys rubber stamped the deal and ran it through the courts. And the Supreme said, no, that's not the way the law reads. So good for them. And so they gave them, the summary judgment was reversed and the case remanded back on both suits.
Well, this wasn't just the Cypress District Board. They're not the only ones that own this.
Right.
The Bossier Parish Police Jury owns this. The 26 JDC owns this.
Yep.
The Second Circuit Court of Appeals owns this. The whole legal system up here owns this. And this is an unbiased, Supreme Court of Louisiana. I mean, look, I ain't felt like there's been much faith to be had in the legal system in recent years. Haven't had it at all. But thank God that we've got a Louisiana Supreme Court that got this right and is actually imposing law in Bossier Parish when everybody else whose responsibility it is to enforce the law is bending the law for a reason. And y'all can all be mad at me. I don't care. I do a good job here of making people mad, right, Rex? We both do.
Well, yeah,
But
we
y'all are
try.
wrong. You're
Yeah.
wrong. Suck it up and admit it. And because you've been screwing a lot of people here on this.
Now, I'm going to throw another file up here. So let's go back in time again, all the way back to May the 15th of 2020. This is a letter from Alex the lawyer of the Ayers, Shelton, Williams, Benson, and Payne, the Ayers law firm, to Madeline Carbonet, who was the assistant AG in the civil division at that time, and I guess maybe she still is. Anyway, this was their letter to Mrs. Carbonet. Basically, I think I used the term when we first covered this, baffling with bullshit or dazzling with brilliance. And I'll let y'all choose which one you think this is. I would strongly lead to the baffling with BS. But according to the Ayers law firm, we strongly believe that Mr. Berry's dual positions do not constitute incompatible offices. As a matter of fact, in the past 5 or 6 months, there has been a great deal of inaccurate and in some cases blatantly false information being circulated about the district and the individual board members. What does that have to do with Robert Berry's dual office holding? That last highlighted portion there, what does that have to do with Robert Berry's dual office holding? Zero. Nada. Zilch. It's called a red herring.
Well, maybe all that misinformation that they're talking about is going to get to be aired out in an open public courtroom when it comes back to Benton for a judge to hear, or will that make the full rounds of appeals to going over to the Second Circuit? Second Circuit rubber stamps it again for some, whitewash in Benton, only to find its way back. Oh, wait a minute. But then I guess Benton is hoping that we get a AG from, an eastern parish that can make it all go away. Maybe that's what we're hoping for, right?
Well, maybe so, but I want to continue on with this letter because this is just amazing. And again, this is going to publish at 9 p.m. on Bossier Watch. I've already got it set up. So I want you to see this. Again, this is over the dual office holding, but she's throwing in, we have reason to believe that some of these landowners or litigants are attempting to use bully tactics. Now that's the pot calling the kettle black, because I was at some of the meetings where the Ayers law firm, and specifically Curtis Shelton, I'll just call him out, we got the video, absolutely tried to pick on some of the women that were at the meeting, but that's a whole other story. All right. Attempting to use bully tactics to gain an unjust advantage in their lawsuits or to intimidate the board into settling the lawsuits in their favor. And I highlighted one other portion there too. It says, however, as of the date of this letter, no further action has been taken on any of these inquiries by the Attorney General's office or the Board of Ethics. That's complete BS, because did you know, Duke, I've mentioned it on the show before, as far as the open meetings law violations, the Cypress District was required to do open meetings law training after the complaints were validated by the Ethics Board. And do you know to date, they haven't done any of that training?
I'm not surprised in the least bit. They, when we said in another show that they are one of a couple of lawless boards, unaccountable to the public in the state of Louisiana with taxing authority, that is them.
Yeah.
In fact, remember their board president at the time? I watched the video today, actually. He arrogantly said, yeah, we hired a lobbyist to fight Dodie Horton's bill, or I hired a lobbyist. I made that decision on my own. And, well, if y'all don't ratify it today, well, then we'll just deal with it at some point after the fact. I mean, use your own tax dollars to fight your interests. And Dodie Horton was acting on the interests of the public. And oh, by the way, well, I got to be careful now. Now Dodie Horton has an opponent in her race.
Yes, she does.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting? Huh. All right. So we'll kind of wrap up right now. Oh, and I did want to point out that KTBS jumped in the game just a little bit ago because they've already published an article. Let me see if I can go find it real quick. Let's see, ktbs.com. And so they're reporting on the issue as well. Says Bossier judge wrong, Berry in violation of dual office holding. Let me see if I can bring that up in a new tab.
So what do y'all think? Watching the show, a lot of y'all commenting. What do y'all think? What will the police jury do? Are they going to continue to allow Robert Berry to break the law and say, oh, well, all the Supreme Court is wrong, that the law actually is this, or what? I mean, I don't know. What's it going to be? At what point does the not following the law in Bossier, at what point does that all interest everybody in the public? Is it only until it arrives on your doorstep? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, okay. And there's more to come. And we've hinted around about it, and we've also not hinted around about it. For some reason, my grammar's all tonight. There could be even more to this Cypress District story. And we'll just leave it that certain information has been shared with certain parties, and they have the option to act on that information, and we'll see if they do. It may come as a result of this lawsuit getting kicked back to the district court. We'll see.
I'm choosing my words carefully, or trying to think of the words to use here. But I mean, look, if I recall correctly, Rex, we showed a video of what is alleged to be park resources being used by the park director out there who's dual office holding on his private property.
Right. And nobody
I think we showed that video, and yeah, who's done anything, Rex?
Well, and look, to be perfectly clear, it is alleged. I mean, we got the video, but nobody's come on to dispute that either.
Well, let me tell you the part that's alleged. There's no alleged to this right here. The fact is that a phone call was made to us and said that if you go by the entrance to the Cypress District and the property adjoining the entrance to the Cypress District, Robert Berry bought it and owns it. And then if you go there right now, you will see Robert Berry on a backhoe spreading dirt, and that backhoe is the Cypress District's backhoe. I drove down there and I videoed none other than Robert Berry on a backhoe spreading dirt. He was there. It was during the day, and in previous videos, him reporting, I think it was reporting to the police jury, that he's 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. I mean, 8 to 5, he's running the park, right? But during the day on this date, he's out there on his private property, on his business, working on a backhoe. So either he's not on the clock for the park like he says he is, to justify that extreme salary that other members said that he's doing, or I mean, I think the board out there said he's doing the job of 3 or 4 people,
right,
to justify the highest paid salary of park administrators in the country. Either that's inaccurate, or I mean, and then the other part of it is, I'm stumbling here a little bit. I need to refresh on this information as well too. But but the alleged part is whether or not that backhoe was a park asset or not, on his being utilized on his private property. I can tell you that's not the only piece of equipment that has been conveyed to us that was being used for personal purposes on his private property. Now we put that on our show out here into the public.
Right, we did.
Has has anybody in the law done anything? Have you gotten any calls, Rex?
I haven't gotten any calls. And I'm
Now,
usually the point guy for all things Cypress related, Cypress District related, but no, I
I
haven't gotten
haven't
that phone call.
I haven't gotten any either. I mean, now look, we're amateur journalists. Maybe we didn't put it out there the right way. Maybe you have to put it out a certain way for somebody in a legal capacity to do an investigation or something. I don't know. I'm just wondering.
No, we've tried every which way we can. But to the Supreme Court of Louisiana's credit, they absolutely put the stomping down on these two issues. Now, I also want to bring up this letter. This is July the 10th, 2020, so we're going back in time again for a few minutes, to Robert Berry from none other than the Attorney General's office. And talking about, this was the official notice that his office had received a complaint that he's violating the provisions of dual office holding and employment law, blah, blah, blah. But I want you to see what's interesting here. Let's see, I've got it highlighted somewhere. They're going through and enclosing copies of the statutes, incompatible offices. You can see all that. Here we go. Now, this is a little difficult to read because it's a little small, and I understand that. But it says, prior to filing a petition pursuant to subparagraph A of this paragraph, the Attorney General or District Attorney shall send written notice by certified mail to the person detailing the alleged violation of this part. So that begs the question. I wonder if the DA's office ever sent anything. And if the court declares that the person is holding offices or employments in violation of this part, the court shall declare the office with the first term to expire. Part C highlighted here, the court may order, doesn't say shall, says may order the reimbursement to the appropriate governmental body of all pay or other compensation and all allowances, including all allowances and payments for travel and other expenses which have been received by the official or employee in the position vacated during a period of time not to exceed 6 months preceding the filing of suit for declaratory judgment. So I wonder, and I'm hearing myself through here.
No echo here, bro.
All right. Anyway, so that makes me wonder if they're going to, or if the court's going to declare or instruct him to pay back 6 months of his salary and expenses or whatever.
Now, when it went to the ethics board, and I can't recall the ruling there, but wasn't that addressed in the ethics? Didn't they had a hearing down there? And he was ordered something, and they had Machota that went down, and then he hired Machota,
Right.
and they appealed it, or was fighting it, or something to that effect. But I mean, I think all that's moot now with the Supreme Court ruling here.
Right. Yeah, that was ethics board complaints. This is actually the law. So anyway, we'll see where all this is going to go. We'll stay on top of it and keep an eye on it. And, let y'all know what happens and what the courts up here decide to do about it since it's been remanded back to them and basically told, hey, boys, follow the law. The good old boys network just won't quite cut it this time.
I look, I know they're creative up there. I mean, Patrick figured out a creative way to, hey, let's see if the AG's correct or not. I mean, that was creative. I got to give credit. I did not see that one coming. That was freaking good. I mean, you got to admit that was good.
Well, I mean,
But
it couldn't have been an accidental thing to say. I mean, that's such an odd thing to say. It couldn't be an accident. Let me play that again. Hold on.
Last time you came, you had a letter that gave the district attorney so much time to bring a lawsuit over the subject. That's the lawsuit.
So what does this mean? Does this mean
That the district attorney has asked a court to determine whether the attorney general is correct or not.
Did you see it? Did you remember seeing in that lawsuit where the district attorney was asking the court to determine whether Jeff Landry his office was correct or not? Was that anywhere in those lawsuits?
I didn't see that, but I mean,
Okay.
I'm just so we're having a suit not to determine whether or not you do a office holding or not, but to determine if the AG is correct or not.
Or if our good old boys up here are more correct.
Wait a minute. You mean to determine if the future governor is correct or not? And this is at a police jury meeting with all the police jurors sitting up there. I mean, they can't say they were just an audience, right? They can't
They
say
were
they
all
were an
made
audience.
very well aware of the situation. I mean, we even walked in there with digitally signed petitions, which, we understood were not legally binding. But when you walk in there and put a big stack on the desk in front of them, you'd think that would get their attention. But oh no, Philip Rogers, this is right in his wheelhouse, literally one of the things he campaigned on. Oh no, Philip Rogers nor none of them wanted to have anything to do with this. So shame on y'all, police jury.
And then wait a minute, not to mention Doug Rimmer. Oh, remember him saying, if I would have known that, we might not would have appointed him. And then guess what? We we found the meeting where not only did he know it, he made the motion to appoint him.
Right. Our good friend Doug Rimmer. Raise taxes, Doug Rimmer.
So the police jury says one thing and does another. I mean, and I'm sorry, they're just as guilty. And we're going to show here in just a minute when we get to talking about all the water stuff. Look, I got to tell you, the Bellevue water system, you guys made the right decision. I know a lot of you think that the wrong decision was made, and I respect your opinion. But I got to tell you, the right decision is not entrusting the police jury. I don't think it is, because you can't trust them. And I'm gonna back that up here in just a second. When I show you the video of this recent police jury meeting and some of the things that they said, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm told is the actual truth. And I mean, we can see what comes out there, and y'all can see what you believe. But I think the right decision was not trusting the police jury to do that deal. I think y'all did right.
Well, speaking of trusting the police jury, this will be their test. Renee Hall put the comment up. Well, his appointment is renewable this July. So let's do an impromptu little poll here. How many people, so let us know in the comments, how many people think the police jury is going to renew Robert Berry's appointment to the Cypress District? How many of you think they're going to renew his appointment to the Cypress District? And I got to say, after all this, do you have a high level of trust in your Bossier Parish police jurors? And look, let's not leave the city council out and the water, who else? Now I used to could cite them off the top of my head, the appointees to the board. Every one of the appointing authorities were aware of this. Every one of them. And they all brushed it to the side. So does that give you a high level of trust, as the statute says, in these government officials that are on these boards and are on, the city council, on the police jury? Do you have a high level of trust about them after this, after the Supreme Court just knocked down both lawsuits?
But Rex,
or kicked them back?
Rex, there is countless videos that we can go back and pull. In fact, there was a video of Robert Berry himself talking about the disinformation or whatever on social media, and he was talking about us. Remember him talking about the lady that came on the show that used to frequent the park and said that everything she said was 100% false.
Right.
Well, that made me think of another question. There's about 80 people watching now. So I'm wondering if any of y'all have called out at the park. Did you know that your phone conversation was being recorded? Rex, did you ever know that? Because he said in that meeting that every phone conversation out there, just for the reason of that woman, like that woman coming on our show, is the reason why they started recording all the phone conversations, was to disprove everything. So my point is they have a database of every phone conversation that's ever took place out there.
And a paranoid, aren't they? Well, look, now, Louisiana is a one-party state, so it would be nice if they gave you a notice of that. But look, I just assume all my phone calls are recorded anyway. If I say something, you can stick them on a billboard for all I care.
Yeah, but the 80-something people watching may not know that they were being recorded by Robert Berry, and I gotta tell you, it makes me wonder what else is being recorded out there. I'm wondering, maybe that explains why a lot of politicians are so forgiving of the law when it relates to Robert Berry. I'm just wondering. I'm talking out loud here. I'm just scratching my head a little bit.
Well, look, there have been allegations that certain government officials have received, maybe free entry to the park, which doesn't sound like much, but maybe they've received free entry to the park, or maybe they've received a free RV spot or whatever. Doesn't sound like much, but there have been those allegations, and it would be interesting if all that stuff was recorded. Very
Have you
interesting.
got? Wait a minute. Let's do a self check here. Have you gotten anything free?
Oh no, I certainly haven't.
Oh,
No,
I
as a
haven't
matter of
gotten
fact, I begrudgingly went and bought my boat sticker again. But I got to tell you, about half the bass fishermen, they don't even fool with getting those boat stickers because it's a civil deal. And so they won't let you in the park anymore. Big whoop.
I wonder what happens if they go destroying evidence from out there. I wonder what that means. I'm just thinking, hey, I ain't got nothing free. I didn't answer the question. I haven't gotten anything free. I mean, I did get a free demand letter for my landowner fees that Robert Berry raised up so that he could justify his pay. And the board did that, and by default, the police jury did that. I mean, and by default, that means Philip Rogers. Thank you, Philip. Appreciate that.
Yeah, he's your police jury, isn't he?
He is my police juryman. And I remember we all asked him to do something, and he was like, oh no, he's doing a great job out there. And
in full disclosure, I helped him with his campaign to be elected police juror, but let's just say things changed. Yeah.
Well, Philip's got his health insurance for the police jury, and all he's got to do is get elected one more term, and then he can keep that forever, so he's good to go. But, Philip's probably got a reason why he went one way or the other, and I'm just wondering about Juliana Parks. Where is she? I mean, I'll give her credit. She is responsive to the public. When people cite a problem, she responds. I mean, she does.
In her own way, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what she's thought about the Cypress District. I mean, I've seen the pictures when they were, having I forget how many numbers of evacuees were coming to the park, and she was up there getting her picture taken, that she was doing all this. I mean, and the number was questionable from people that reported to us that it wasn't the number that was articulated to the public, but she was there. I wonder what she thinks about some of this. I mean, maybe she thinks that there's some other law. She's a lawyer. She'll find some way to get out of it.
Well, as a lawyer, I wonder how she's going to view the Supreme Court rulings.
Well, she is the lawyer for the sheriff's office through her firm, while sitting on the police jury.
So she's a double good lawyer.
Yeah. So I guess that, I mean, maybe if there was anything regarding the sheriff's office out there at the park, I mean, she would be one of the first people to know, right?
Ryan Haygood says, quit knocking Philip. You could have Wes Shepard. Well, yeah, I realize that, Ryan, but Philip ain't no cherry either. And literally, I helped him quite a bit with his campaign. And
wait a minute.
Anyway.
Look, Wes Shepard, I don't know if I would try to break his jaw or if I'd shake his hand, but I'm starting to wonder if Wes Shepard might not have been a better police juryman than Philip Rogers.
Well, let's say this. He certainly couldn't have been any worse.
I don't know that he could have been
I'll
worse.
say that, Ryan. He certainly could not have been worse. But I digress. All right. So enough about the Cypress District and all that for one evening.
This is a moving target on the Cypress District thing. But hey, I want to congratulate everybody and on a job well done. Last show, there was a subject that we talked about, and a lot of people, while they were on the show, took action. And Rex, I
Right.
wanted to point this out that, a lot of people feel like they can't affect change. They can't make anything happen. They can't do anything. Well, I ain't gonna say that, our show and the people taking action during the last show is the reason solely for this. But today on the House floor, remember, we had Jill come on at the beginning of the
Right.
show, and we promoted everybody going and signing their petition to, go to the Health and Welfare Committee to promote HB 291. And so for a lot of you, you may not realize HB 291 during COVID, a lot of folks in nursing homes and in hospitals, they died, and loved ones were not able to go and visit or see them or talk to them. They were isolated and they didn't get to see them. Well, HB 291 was going to fix that to where, you were going to get to do that. Well, today, late this afternoon, in fact, I stayed late at the office. I was almost late getting here to watch the vote, and it passed on the House floor by a vote of 100-0.
Wow. Good.
Nobody voted against it.
Yeah. I mean, who would want to be that vote that it could be used against them in the future? You voted against being able to see your loved ones in in an emergency situation or crisis or whatever. Future COVID situation.
The point I would like to make is that collectively, all of you guys taking action, the ones that did, it makes a difference. When you all act as one and you take an action, it does make a difference. So in the future, I would encourage you to do it again.
Yeah. All right. Well, good deal on that. I'm glad to get the update. Okay. Shall we move on to more water drama?
I think so. And, this water stuff with both the city and the parish, and again, reviewing the Cypress District stuff, I came across one of those other videos of Robert Berry talking about the, Cypress Black Bayou as being the purpose was for water. And then I was thinking about, and then if they didn't do that, he was talking about that if we didn't allow the oil companies to use the water for fracking, they could be sued and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm thinking about the Shaw Group study that we saw that said that it wasn't a viable option for water, for drinking water to scale. And then, the police jury in totality. So they had a police jury meeting last week, April the 19th. And there was some pretty dadgum interesting stuff that took place. And it wasn't so much about drinking water, but about flooding and residential stuff. And at the police jury meeting, to the credit of some folks in the community, they showed up, went on to that line of you can make a difference and you can affect change. Some people showed up at the council or the police jury meeting and they said their piece. And I got to tell you, I was impressed, and we're going to show it to you. So whenever you're ready, and we're not talking about just one case. The first case we're talking about is out in Halton, out in Glenn Benton's district. And you had a person get up and start speaking. And I'm going to go ahead and start at the 24:10 mark, and we'll go from there. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and hit play, and let's make sure everything's working tonight. Well, maybe I'll try it. Hold on. Only show me as watching the video, but okay, so here we go. 24:10 mark.
We had a lady that wanted to come and speak on an item that's not on the agenda. You want to come up, please, and give your name and address, and we'll add you to the agenda. State your name and your address, please.
My name is Robin House, and I live at 1151 Highway 614 in Houghton,
Okay.
Louisiana.
All right.
I'll make the motion to add her to the agenda.
Second. Motion by Mr. Salzer, second by Mr. Plummer to add this lady to the agenda.
I don't have a light. Do y'all have a light?
I got a light.
Okay.
Vote. We'll get voice votes if we don't have any.
I'm a yes.
Tom's a yes. Okay, so you're ready. Go ahead, lady.
Okay.
Natalie, go ahead and speak.
Thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to thank Glenn Benton for addressing a call that I had the other day. I know that on this agenda there are several issues that came up that have been deferred because of lack of notification of property owners. And in my case, I was locked out of my property by the village water system transfer. My property is the easement for the water tower on Telephone Hill. And that lock, I had spoken with someone with the company and told them, I said, please, I've let y'all have access, but I have a lock, don't lock me out. Well, they changed the locks and locked me out, and I didn't know. So Glenn Benton, I talked to him. He got Larry to meet up with me and get me a key, because that's an alternate access to my property. I don't have a lot of road frontage, and so I don't want that compromised. And I also know that, sometimes things
Okay,
get
yeah,
mixed
you'll have
up
to tell
in
me
the
when to stop and start.
Yeah, I got to think about that. So when the parish consolidated, look, a lot of folks may or may not realize this, but the parish took on this thing to be the Consolidated Waterworks and Sewer District, and they started, binging on buying water systems and sewer systems. That's what they call themselves. It's the police jury, aka the Consolidated Waterworks Sewer District thing. Anyway, so they went after the village system. Well, the village system, Miss House, that she identified herself, is a part or was a part of the village water system. Well, again, one of those drop balls, what she's talking about is they went in there and just overnight went and just locked everybody out.
Locked her out of her own property?
Well, I'm guessing she had an easement. She had something like that through her property, something or another. There was some kind of an arrangement. But the point is, the police jury just went in there, guns a-blazing, had no idea about any arrangements, and locked her out. They didn't know. They did not know.
Well, that sounds typical of our government politicians.
So,
okay. So, and I was trying to kind of listen to the audio volume and read some of the comments more than listening to what she was saying. Did they get her access to her property back?
Yeah, they did, and she had called Glenn Benton, and I think Glenn got it worked out.
Right.
But the point was they started this process and they had no idea. I mean, about what they were doing. Seems to me that if you're going to take over a system, this is something you should have known in the very beginning.
Yeah, you might want to do your homework
arbitrarily locking people out.
Yeah.
But not the case here. Jump to the next spot.
All right, so let's see. Is that the 29:15 mark where Glenn Benton tries to address Mrs. House?
I don't know why it's not letting me see it, but
yeah, I don't show that you're actually
right
in the deal. Did you join the deal to review it?
Live review.
Yeah, maybe refresh your screen. Try to go back into it. Technical difficulties, folks. All right, well, let's go. I'll jump us up to that point. Just tell me when to pause it.
Yep.
Phone situation.
I talked to Larry Landry, Robin, right after you and I had to talk, and he's supposed to notify, and you informed me about the dentist office losing water in the machines. So he's supposed to notify y'all, but we also have a program, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but we'll need to get you the information. Stacy has it. Code Red, that you download on your phone, and it will give you any boil advisory, or hopefully we'll put on there that if a busted line is there, how long it may take to fix. So that is already implemented. They're going to be sending those notices out along with the bills. So we just got this implemented about a week ago. Now, as far as the phone number, the emergency call at night goes to our operator. And so that's why you probably woke him up, because we don't have anyone on duty. But he would address
Wait, stop
whatever
it there.
issue is at night.
All right. Did I
Larry
hear him say code red?
Yeah. So what we're talking about here is they took over the village water system, and previously the village water system had a system. I think it was called like the phone tree or something like that. Well, when you had a boil advisory or you had a water outage or something of that nature, the people who managed the village water system would put a notice out to all the people that were affected. Like you'd get a phone call or you get a text message or something along those lines. Well, then, I mean, they took over the system and then they didn't have any idea. They didn't try to learn. They didn't know anything about what the process was. They didn't care. I mean, I'm going to say it like it is. They didn't care about the process to notify people. So, like Miss House goes on to talking about, she's cooking supper, and and they're talking about the process that they have introduced this new thing called Code Red. That and oh, by the way, Code Red or whatever, you have to go and sign up or get this app. You have to go and sign up for it. How do all these people know about it? Well, when they send the next water bills out, they're going to let everybody know that here's how you can sign up for it to know whether or not you need to boil your water before cooking your food.
And we did have a comment here from Jesse, I hope I said that right, Credur. Anyway, says robocalls went out, so maybe they did a combination of robocalls? I don't know.
Okay, well, if they did, credit to them. Good job.
Yeah, can
but was
anybody
that
else verify that they got a robocall if you're in this water district?
well? I'm wondering if that was from the system that they had in place, or was this from that new Code Red thing that they? But Glenn Benton said himself at from the 19th that they had just put this in place a week ago. So they didn't have this in place, but by their own admission, here they say something here in a minute, and I don't want to jump too far ahead. But when we were talking about earlier about the police jury saying things that weren't accurate to the public, and we're fixing to point it out here in just a minute. And we jumped a little bit ahead, but Miss House said in her opening statements, Rex, when we were playing it, we were trying to figure out this thing. She's quoted as saying that she's had more issues in the last 20 days than she's had in the last 20 years on the village water system.
Wow. Well, that's saying something if that's actually the case. And I want to point out also another comment. Jesse says, no, myself and the other ladies would send them when we were there. So apparently Jesse worked for the village water system, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah. So at that mark we were just at, Glenn Benton was trying to address Miss House, and he was saying that they had introduced this new program called Code Red. And so I guess jump to the 30-25 mark, Rex.
Okay, yeah,
We'll try to wing it. We'll try to wing it through this.
Okay.
The two things that I've asked them at our meetings to address is the water pressure and the dirty water. So that's the top two priorities. Now, we addressed the gate, and we don't know what right-of-ways we have and don't have. That was I know the first day after the system went down, Butch informed Larry to get locks on all the gates, and so that's probably why, not knowing the situation that you and Village had worked out, that they probably took the chain off and put a new lock on there. And I apologize for that, but we did address it. So we're trying to make the improvements as they come before us. And, I guess I'm your point of contact if you have some issues. But, that's the Code Red is going to be come across whatever phone number you give. It'll ring that number to tell you boil advisory has been lifted, or we have a broken line. Your system may experience water low pressure for a couple of hours, something like that. So that's been implemented.
Right.
I want to pause it right there for just a second. So every time he says Code Red, I just have visions of Colonel Jessup and a few good men. I just want to put that out there.
You can't handle the truth.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
But I mean, look, and I appreciate everything that Glenn is saying. I mean,
Right.
they addressed the gate, they got that situation corrected. But it seems to me that when you're dealing with an issue as people's water, I mean, 2
They're
days, 2
supposed to
days
be
without
professionals.
2 days without water and you're dead. I mean, this is an important issue, and you're telling me that you you don't have your I's dotted and you don't have your T's crossed?
Yeah,
I
it goes
mean,
back
because
to that government
obviously
trust thing. They're supposed to be professionals. You would think they would do their due diligence and have all their ducks in a row first and be proactive about that. And apparently they didn't. They didn't. And like you said, to Glenn's credit, he's apologetic and, saying that they got the issue corrected.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, look, the police jurors themselves, I'm going to throw them a little bit of a bone here. I mean, they can only act upon what they're being told by the administrators that they've put in place, right? The people underneath them. If they've hired somebody to run the water system or to manage it or to take over it, they can only do, or address or say what those people under them are telling them is the case. But if they're getting bad information or things aren't being taken care of, I mean, why are the police jurors not calling people to the mat saying this is unacceptable? This isn't good. Maybe they're doing it behind closed doors. Maybe they're doing it because we don't want the public to know that. I mean,
Or
but
maybe as Val Baker reminds us, maybe it's because, like Butch Ford said, the system was hacked. It was hackers.
yeah, well, we're going to be going down that road soon enough. So go ahead and keep playing. Hit play.
Okay, here we go.
You mentioned that to me on the phone, but you didn't know the name of it.
Yeah.
My other question is that something that's available that we can look on?
It's available right now.
I'm sorry.
It's available right now.
That wasn't my question. My question is that something that's available that we can look on our computer and not have a downloaded app on our phone?
That I don't believe it. I think it's just an automatic ring.
I mean,
You can do it on the computer also.
Can you? Okay, so.
Okay, yeah, because some people don't want to load a bunch of apps on their phone.
Right.
And I just didn't know how to get on to my
Yeah,
computer to find it.
He just answered that for us, because I didn't know
You
that.
can't get on your computer and log into it. And I think we're going to put it on the water bills, and if y'all just want to call down and put your name on, you can. And I think we discussed that we would fill it out and put y'all's name on it for you.
Right. What happened to the phone tree that called people that
Well,
y'all had in place?
When we walked in the office up there, it was called in, we didn't have any access to any of that information. We had to just start from scratch.
Okay.
So I don't know what was going on.
Whoa,
I never got a call from Village.
So those of you that are watching the show that worked for Village Water System, is what he said true? Did they not have any access to that or have any knowledge of that? True or false?
Well, Rex, I already been running that trap a little bit. And what I can tell you is that I'm told that, and later on they're going to, I mean, we're jumping a little bit of ahead here, but 30, yeah, keep playing because we need to get to the 3318 mark. And
we're almost there.
Then let's cover this. Go ahead.
All right, here we go.
What if I had a boil advisory? I never received that on my phone.
Well, you may not have lived in an area where it happened.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, mine went down quite a bit too, but I guess I didn't know that I could sign up for that, just like we're just trying to get the word out now that people can sign up for this Code Red to get boil advisory. Because the first day when we had the boil advisory, it didn't go out till 1 o'clock that day. And so that's what I kept telling Larry. I said, Larry, does that mean the water's good in the morning and this goes bad at 1 o'clock? So that's why we addressed that.
Right, because waiting until 6 or 10 o'clock news is
that's
not
it. So,
helpful once you've made dinner and washed your clothes or whatever.
That problem was there before the parish came in, well, they had a lot of people and see it on social media complain about the boil advisories.
Okay.
How do you get notified? So we're trying to address all the issues as they come
So is
back.
it codered.com or what is it that I need to go to?
Stacy can give it to you. I don't have it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, Glenn, does everybody know that everybody that was running Village Water walked out and they
Yeah,
left
she knows.
y'all?
They know about it.
Yeah. So,
All right.
you know.
Right
I
there.
appreciate y'all trying to make it good in the transition.
Did you heard Philip say, does
Yeah.
does everybody know that everybody at Village just walked out?
Yep. Hey, he said it.
And Rimmer joins in there and says, yeah, says we had to make lemons from lemonade. So I'm told that, and again, the password issue to all these accounts come up because there's an allegation that the parish tried to seek to get the passwords to all these systems and that nobody gave it to them. They were refused access to any of these systems. But what I can tell you is that so let's take the systems in place here. You had the SCADA system, you had the phone tree system, which was the notification system that if you needed to take an action with your water, if your water was off, or if you had a boil advisory, right? Pretty important thing.
Right.
And then you had obviously billing, QuickBooks, that. So I'm told that the SCADA system, that manages the data flow of the wells and the water levels, right? And the pumps and all that. It's kind of the engineering part. Well, there was a couple of people that had the passwords to that system. One was the head guy, Sal, and he didn't give up his password, I'm told, sources tell me, because they had done freaking went out there and accused sabotage. There was this allegation of sabotage. So why would he give his password up when he's being implicated or alleged or it's being suggested, however it was put out there, that he was a part of so-called sabotage? But that's not the rub. The rub is that there was another operator out there named AJ who actually had a password to the SCADA system, and they had access through that SCADA system through him and his password through that. So there's the password deal regarding SCADA. In regards to the phone tree, none of the people that had access, from what I understand, none of the people that had access to the phone tree system were never asked for access to the system. The police jury never asked them for it. Never did. QuickBooks system, the financing and the billing, nobody was ever asked.
Well,
That's what
I can tell you that
that's what sources are telling us.
It's relatively easy to break through QuickBooks passwords. I mean, there are plenty of free tools out there available online to do that. But Tabitha Bruce, let me put the comment back up. She brings up a good comment. Says, would you want someone working under your credentials that had just walked into your system that you put your blood into and made it a mess? And that goes back to your point of, once this person was accused or implicated or it was even insinuated that he might be involved, I wouldn't turn over my password either.
There ain't no way I would.
Not going to do it.
Wise on his part not to give them control via his password, because there ain't no telling what they would have went back in there and tried to do.
Right. And we know we can trust them so well that they would never do the wrong thing, would they? Talking about the police jury.
Yeah. So anyway, so just to emphasize the point that I'm making, the phone notification system, and that's what they were talking about right here, is that everybody just walked out on them and they had no access. Philip said that. I mean, look, I don't know that Philip really knows, and they're being told what they're being told. I don't know that they actually have hands-on. Glenn Benton probably doesn't either. The police juryman doesn't. It's probably everything that they're being told, but the phone notification system, I can tell you, this is the homework that I did. Person named Sue, a person named Jesse, a person named Tracy, a person named Yvonne, all had passwords to that system. And I'm told that none of them were asked for access to that system. So the bottom line is the police jury never even, they may not have even known it existed to even ask that. But how is it that you go in there to take over the system and you make everybody mad, you run everybody off, and that you can run the system better? I remember that was a quote that we used in the previous show that we were told by one of the folks involved out there. It, and the system falls apart, and then you're going to try to blame somebody else? Bull crap.
When the IT guys don't do their job, and I say that as an IT professional, when the IT guys don't do their job, they're going to slough it off. And it just keeps rolling from there.
And the other part of it is if any one of those people, you're telling me that all of those people, that if they had access to this system and their own, obviously they wouldn't be on this, a part of this system if they weren't, getting water out of it. You're telling me that a bull advisory is needed and none of these people are going to give up their password to the phone system to notify people that they may be in harm's way? You're telling me these people are that cold-hearted? I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a minute that they wouldn't do that.
Well, okay, and so mysterious Mark Smith has decided to join the party late tonight, but he says, what about the raises Sal gave to everybody or the bonuses? So let me make sure I'm clear, and for those of you that are watching that were part of the village system, were these employees paid or salaried or hourly, it doesn't matter, were they paid employees of this system?
Yeah, and I don't know anything about any of that, Mark Smith. Perhaps you could elaborate and fill us in on that a little bit more if there's something there. I mean, look, if there was something egregious took place, hey,
well, look,
we'll go there.
Yeah, so let's turn the question right around, Mark Smith. What about the raises Sal gave to everybody? What about the bonuses? If he had the authority to do that, fine. If he didn't, tell us about it, Mark. We'd like to know. And how do you know? Anyway.
So jump to the 3451 mark.
Okay, let me jump over there. And here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
They walked out, so we didn't get to say, hey, what do we need to do with y'all?
So
stuff?
you don't. Okay.
Is there no way to contract anyone to give you information for a temporary time during this transition from that office that might know something that would?
They just walked out. The way I understand,
but I mean,
The
they haven't
closest
moved to
information we have
Australia.
is Mr. Mike Thornton back there has been a big asset to us, and I don't even know if he knows it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, some of that knowledge base, and maybe
Well,
that
if you
y'all
know
could
any of them.
contract them to tell
Yeah, so she was, I think I interrupted her. Let me let her finish.
you things. I don't know.
They
I know
wouldn't
that
answer, when we
people
called to
that-
ask for the passwords, they wouldn't answer the phone.
Being very
All right.
cooperative.
All right.
Well, like the lady said, money usually talks. If they were paid employees and they had decided to quit, I can tell you what I'd tell somebody that was trying to call and get a hold of me. Figure it out yourself. Or work something out with me contractually, and I'll be glad to assist you or whatever. But I'm not going in to do somebody else's job for free when I quit.
Well, I mean, and if it's true, what was said, that they went in there and told them, says, not only do we not need you, we're going to do a better job than you, and if you want to go, carry it. I mean,
Be careful what you wish for.
Why would I take their call? Ain't no way I'd take their call. I mean, if you got it and you don't need me, and screw you, but that's not what they're saying. All the police jurymen are sitting up here saying a totally different tune. They're all saying we were all just abandoned. Those people just left without notice. They didn't give us any heads up. They just they're the bad guys.
Well, look, let's make this easy. So We're
And oh, by
giving
the way, somebody sabotaged the whole deal.
so
Remember that?
we're
We can't let that go. There's some kind of nefarious something because Butch Ford called in the police to investigate. Remember?
Well, that may have been a little CYA, but here's the deal. So we know we have village water system employees or former employees watching the show. Here's your platform. If you want to set the record straight, hit us up in the comments, or you're more than welcome to come on the show. Just let us know in the comments. Or there's always Proton Mail if you want it to be anonymous, but you were there in the room literally when it happened. We want to hear your side of the story. Because the police jury is saying one thing, and we're hearing other things, and somewhere in there, in the middle is the truth, and I would lean not towards the police jury side, but that's just me. Knowing those yahoos up at the police jury.
So Mark Smith says, ask your sources why they quit. But then Jesse posts down below it, we didn't get a bonus this year or last year. By the way, my resignation was turned in to Mike Thornton along with one other lady. Ask him where it is. So I think clearly to Mark Smith, some people, I mean, I don't know Jesse, haven't ever spoke to Jesse, but people are saying that and they didn't get nothing. That's an employee there, or former employee, I believe.
You don't get paid, you drag up. I mean, I used to work on a pipeline for a couple of years, and it was pretty simple. If our checks were 1 hour late, we dragged up. Or drug up, I guess would actually be the correct tense. But anyway, literally walk out on the whole pipeline and leave them hanging until the checks got cut.
Mark Smith says FOIA.
I can tell you what they'll do with that. It's real simple, and that's federal, by the way, Mark. Again, it's a public information request when we're talking about state issues or local or regional governmental issues, not FOIA. But aside from that little tidbit, so I can tell you what they'll say with this. I can almost 100% guarantee the response from the police jury. They're going to say that falls under employee privacy, which is not necessarily allowed under the public information deals.
Yeah. So let's jump ahead. This wasn't the only water. This was the first sparring in this police jury meeting. Jump to the 111:54 mark, and so now you've got a proposed development out there along Highway 80. So now we're not talking about drinking water. Now we're talking about runoff water and all this. And anyway, 111:54. Let it roll.
Okay.
This little area flowing right here is where that creek or that drainage has been traversing for many years. And we do know that in the past, right here along Highway 80, when things get really bad, it has flooded Highway 80, so you can't get through there. So I'm not really sure what needs to be done, but if you put a lot of concrete over here, and they've cut down this hill quite a bit in the back, that's Forest Hills here, this water is going somewhere, and it typically goes this way. And so my concern is, our property's right here. We have storage buildings and we have an office in the front, and that area is being washed by the extra water.
And Robin, your
pond calculations, and now they haven't done detention ponds or anything yet. They just cleared the site.
Yeah, the detention pond is in place with the outfall structure, and so I would imagine, or I haven't heard of Highway 80 flooding or overtopping the road since we've done the dirt work.
No, not recently, but it has in the past.
Yeah, Robin, that did flood in the past, but that was before we found out the school board, when they did that big parking lot, they did not put a detention pond in, and Butch went back and made them put a detention pond. And since they put that in, it hadn't flown over, it hadn't crossed 80, but it was 6-8 inches of water, and you're right, that went across it. But that was when the school board added all that additional parking.
Right.
And they didn't put a detention pond in at the time to catch it.
So we're seeing an issue with whoever's approving these things, that y'all are not really mitigating the water issues in some way.
No,
not
we're
really
addressing
sure
the water issues. They just didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Well, they had to do what they were approved to do, right?
When we found out about it, then Butch sent them out, they put it in.
But isn't the parish engineer supposed to ensure that that doesn't happen before it's made, or?
Ding, ding,
problem?
ding, ding.
If someone does something we don't know about it, then we can't address it, but when we find out about it, we address it.
Right, well, you're approving things that people have concerns about for flooding. So that's kind of where we're at, as far as we want to make
All
sure.
right, stop it right there.
We don't,
So her contention is you guys are approving this stuff, so they're approving it and not reading it, approving it, not knowing what any of it means. What's the deal here?
Well, they're there because you've got a developer that's building some project that adjoins her property, and she proceeds. They get off to talking about Highway 80 flooding.
Right.
Glenn Benton points out that the school, as the police jury approved the school board building a school out there or something, no detention ponds. And a lot of folks may not realize that supposedly a detention pond is supposed to, it's like some calculation that they figure that if you build concrete or a building or a structure or whatever, and you displace this much water, if you build this detention pond, it will serve in a heavy rain event to collect that water that would normally, go into that area. It would be collected in this area and hold it so that you didn't cause it excess runoff to go flood another area. Well, so she's calling them out. Well, who approved the school to do this without a retention pond? Who did it? Well, it was them. They did it. That's what she's pointing out. You're the ones making these decisions, and
Yeah. And not knowing or
They're
reading
part
or
of it.
comprehending. Boy, that'd be nice if they had a developer on the police jury, wouldn't it? Might know something about that.
or a couple. But
Or a couple.
anyway,
Yeah.
so this thing is kind of getting sideways, and at the 1:15:32 mark, the new engineer, Mr. Hudson, he's got to come in and he's got to rescue the situation. So I don't know, I may be wrong. I was watching this and it rubbed me wrong that he was kind of, this lady's from the public out here. She's getting up here and she's representing her interests in the community. And I don't know, it just felt like he kind of came hard on her. But on the other hand, if I put myself in his position, I mean, I almost feel like him and the police jurors are in a no-win situation as well too. Because I'm gonna play devil's advocate. On the other side, think about as you're watching these things, because there's a couple of these incidences in this meeting. If the police jury says to a private landowner or somebody that has land for development, if they say, "Oh, you can't do it," 9 times out of 10 they're going to get sued, right?
Right.
So it's going to get litigated. So they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And as far as the engineer, if I was in his shoes trying to navigate between somebody that's existing and I mean, man, that'd be a hard spot to be in. But 1:15:32.
Here we go. Let's see here. 1:15:32. Hit play.
Is the tree on our property?
Yes, it
or
is.
On your property?
It's
or-
on your property.
Then I'll talk to the owners and see if we can. If it's dying,
It's
we'll
dead.
remove that tree.
So Ms. Hiles, why don't I just meet you and
Right.
Mr. Kelch and
Okay.
and the landowner out there one day?
We'll solve that
And we'll
problem
go
for
through
you.
these issues with you.
Great.
Absolutely.
As far as that's concerned.
Sure.
And
Well,
then we'll verify they built what they're supposed to build. But we haven't issued any building permits out there for this unit. Now, they can clear land and move dirt without a permit.
Sure,
So,
but they can't flood another property.
well, they should not be flooding any other
Right.
property. So
That's
you-
our
you
point.
flooded,
Yes, we've had more water come
You-
through, and we've had some issues,
so but
With-
you flooded.
yes, through that drainage ditch.
So your house, some of your business or
There-
different
there's
things
a-
have gone
Well, we
underwater.
didn't build over the drainage ditch, but it's in there in that area. I
Okay.
can show you when we go and look,
Okay,
but
but now you're experiencing more water or you have flooded? That's two different, I'm trying to understand. Is any of your structures flooded?
no, they have not come into
Okay.
the structures as
Okay.
yet.
All right,
That's
what I
correct.
want.
Thank you.
All righty.
And I'd like to just point out one more thing. We installed, just
Oh.
for clarification, we
So-
installed a 36-inch out.
So there we go. Okay.
So, I mean, technically, I guess he needs to make the distinction between flooding or not flooding when she's using the term generally flooding. I mean,
Right.
whether it's a structure or whether it's not, but if it is her property that's experiencing more water flow or being, flooded as ways she was describing it, I mean, I think she's got a right to speak up and say that, but it almost seemed like the engineer was taking issue with her use of the terminology, wanting to shut her down.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the way I took it. He was trying to get her to clarify, all right, did your property or any of your structures actually flood, or did you just experience an increase in the water flow through the property? I don't know. I'll give him maybe benefit of the doubt there, maybe.
All right. Well, let's go to the 120 mark and let's go to the next development and let's see what we've got there.
Ricky said is we've, DOTD's looked at the entrance off of Highway 3. They've made their comments. We've looked at the drainage extensively. We don't see any problems that wouldn't comply with our current drainage ordinance. It's in the Willis-Chute Basin. It will be required to have a 100-year detention. I know y'all have heard us say this numerous times, but these special drainage basins that have had issues in the past, I mean, instead of a 25-year detention policy, these basins, we've increased these size of these detention ponds to be larger, to hold more volume of runoff so that we don't impact the neighboring properties.
To handle a 100-year in this case?
That's correct. And they're conveying all the off-site drainage.
All right. So this has been bothering me apparently like it has David Womack too. I want to pause it there for a second. Are they detention ponds or retention ponds? And is there a difference? Somebody who's a contractor, let me know. All right, let me continue on.
Through their property. I don't see any issues with the development. I know that there were some issues that the neighbors have brought up about some fencing that needs to be extended through lot 3, maybe lot 4. I know that the developer was willing to work and kind of appease the landowners next door. I know currently lot 4 hasn't been planned for any development. It was to stay a green space for now.
So this plat you're good with?
So yes,
right,
sir.
stop it.
So each
Stop it
lot
right
will
there.
carry its own
All right.
detention.
So, and I wanted to point out, Ann Price says this parish engineer, the former fired city engineer. Ms. Ann, I don't think that there was a fired city engineer. I think that there was a replaced city engineer with a private contractor who is now working both sides in the middle called Manchac. But no, I don't know of any fired city engineer in Bossier. And if it's who I'm thinking you're talking about, they're not the same. It's two different people. So they get to talking about on this issue, Rex, and where we're talking about, so folks know, the previous issue, they were talking about a development off of Highway 80 in Glen Benton's district. Then now we're talking about a development right off of Benton Road, right there kind of where the water tower is in North Bossier. And, you hear the engineer there talking about where they're 100-year flood detention ponds, where previously they were only requiring on some of these places like 25-year flood detention or retention, whatever terminology y'all decide y'all want to keep up with here. I'll go with it. So the difference is obviously with the 100-year flood detention ponds, that's what they're building them. It's going to hold a whole lot more water. Therefore, it should, in theory, reduce, the possibility of flooding. But, with all this development and it begs the question, is 100-year enough? What actually is enough? And what is the police jury's role in here? What, some citizens have a few things to say about it. And at the 125 mark, the engineer and Juliana get to talking about a 500 year. And it's almost as if this gentleman up here speaking that you see in the image, he's a citizen there, and he gets to talking about it, and he gets talking about how long he's been there and how many years that he was there before any of this development. He didn't have flooding then, but now he does, or he doesn't
Is
have
this
water standing
is this inside the levee or outside the levee?
outside.
Okay. All right. Just want to make
So
sure.
go ahead and hit play.
All right.
Thank you. Eric, is there anything in the engineering world that you can require beyond the 100-year flood retention pond?
You require a 500-year detention. I mean, it's
Have
never
any
been
of
done
these
in
floods
this area.
recently been to the 100-year level?
I'm sorry, Julian, one more time.
Any of the recent floods this gentleman
Would they be in a
referenced, have those
smart
been
aleck?
to the 100-year level?
I don't think we've seen 100-year.
Well, and to her credit, she did say retention pond.
Well, God knows she's got to be right. So, but when he jumps up there and says, we can do a 500 year, was he being, I think he was being
A smart
kind
ass?
of, I think he was.
Condescending?
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that. Maybe he was being serious, but whatever.
Play it again. Y'all tell me what
Okay.
y'all think.
All
Was
right,
he
so
was
let
he
me
being that
go
way?
back to the 125.54. Here we go.
Thank you. Eric, is there anything in the engineering world that you can require beyond the 100-year flood retention pond?
You require a 500-year detention. I mean, it's
Have
never
any
been
of
done
these
in this
floods
area.
recently been to the 100-year level?
I'm sorry, Julian, one more time.
Any of the recent floods this gentleman referenced, have those been to the 100-year level?
I don't think we've seen a 100-year flood in this basin yet. Butch, am I wrong? Yeah. Not in this basin.
Okay, so for any of those prior ones, this 100-year
They've been closed,
detention
but they
pond
haven't. Yeah.
would handle the water that will be displaced by this new plat that we're looking at approving today?
I mean, nothing we do will address their
I'll
issues.
stop
I
when
mean,
you
we're
want
just
to.
talking about one site.
Right.
And we're conveying their water
But we're
through a
making
site.
sure we're not going to make that worse.
With our detention policy, I mean, that's the purpose of it, yeah. But this water doesn't go into his subdivision. It goes the other way. It goes north, so I'm just.
Well, you can stop it there.
All right.
So, lucky for him, there's another citizen that it does go to their subdivision to the north. That'll be right up here in just a second. But I got to tell you, Rex, he had to recover himself. He came up there. He thought, to Juliana's credit,
Yeah.
she wasn't belittling the citizen here. She was being serious, but he walked up there. He was being dismissive, joking about a 500 year, and then, realizes, oh, wait a minute, she is serious. Could you repeat the question so I
Right.
can answer it legitimately? That was the way I read it.
Yeah, I got to give her credit where it's due. I think she was trying to show legitimate concern. So, very interesting.
So 128.42.
All right. Yeah, here we go.
My name is
drop
Cheryl Sturger. I
incoming.
live at 204 Dana Lane in Dozier City, which is north of my family road, whom you've just heard from. So I do have some pictures also of some of my neighbors who are concerned for the flooding of the water that's going to be coming off from this development. And just a few pictures. I don't know how this works. Okay. So this is across the street from the drainage that flows eventually into the Willow Chute. Also across the street. You might recognize this house. It's very unique in that neighborhood. Here to the, most of them call it like a church house. That's their yard. This was not after a significant heavy rain, not like we had like a week and a half ago. This was taken approximately 2 months ago during not a light rain, but a mild rain.
Yes.
These pictures were taken.
Do they stock that pond?
This,
Is that a pond?
No, that's just water.
Yeah, this is all water. This is not a pond. These are people's yards where their kids are supposed to play. Most of the lots in this neighborhood are all about an acre, the 2 acres. Some of them are 3/4 of an acre. All of it's supposed to drain. I've seen across the street from my house, I'm just here on behalf of some of my neighbors,
Yeah,
that
it's amazing.
the
isn't
water, when it was back in 2016, when we had about 6 inches of rain in less than 24 hours, y'all are probably familiar with what I'm talking about, where the water was 5 feet away from their front doors. Any additional water put onto that neighborhood will cause some of those houses to go under. Not me personally, but I'm here, like, again, on behalf of my neighbors. And of course, I'm also concerned about my family street, which is Flower Brook, and they're on the south side. Again, we're all on septic as well in Plantation Estates. When the development where Muddy Waters and Tequila San Miguel's and the fitness center went up, it pushed more water into our area and more drainage. There's not a detention pond there. When Green Acres Baptist Church was built, again, more water was pushed onto my aunt. She's gone under, or close to gone under several times. We're talking within centimeters of her front door. Where we've sandbagged it plenty of times. I go over there personally and help sandbag for her. Guys, this is something that is serious. Something needs to be changed. If you go down Willow Chute, it is so overgrown and filled in from runoff water, depositing dirt and everything. It has gotten so shallow that it's getting really close. It's becoming a big, major issue. And what we're asking is, y'all are saying a 100-year detention pond. Well, if we continue to go and Willow Chute continues to be deposited with more dirt and have more trees and growth and everything growing in it, we are going to go under. There's not a detention pond out there that's going to be able to, help us. One of the gentlemen I was speaking to before the meeting started, he guaranteed or said that it would drain, this detention pond. Where is it going to drain to? How quickly is that going to drain? If we're sitting in water for days upon days, my neighbors still have water standing in their front yards today. Like, mosquito problems are an issue. Where are we going to put all this water? If it's going to drain into our neighborhood, which is north, which is what they said, it's going to go north, that's Plantation Estates, where are we going to put our water? We're also on septics.
All right, parish engineer, you just got called out. Where are you gonna put the water? I see the police jury card incoming. It's fixing to get played, Rex.
All right, here, I'll hit play again.
So we can talk a little bit about Willow Chute. Willow Chute is not a drainage basin that the parish controls. It's levee board controlled. We can definitely try to make some inroads with the levee board to try to get them to do some work.
Not our fault.
I know that
Didn't he just say it's going to go north?
He said to her subdivision, but now he's saying, "Look, Willow Chute's not our problem. That's them other guys. That's the levee board. It's them guys. That's a police jury card. You got to blame somebody else. They did it in the village water system. It's somebody else's fault. It ain't our fault."
Oh, yeah. They did it in the Cypress District. It's all us, rabble rousers and complainers out there.
That's right. It's somebody else's fault. And now here you go. It's somebody else's fault. But wait, the police jury card was not played once tonight. It was played multiple times at this meeting. So 134-34.
All right, so let me jump up there. Let's see. Oh, Philip.
I'll say this. I've been on here and I've heard this several times over the years that, the developers that started years ago, they did things and we didn't have engineers and we didn't have anybody regulating what was going on. And so that makes the developers that are doing things now have to spend a lot more money. Last man is paying for all of the previous problems.
Correct.
And so when that subdivision was built, it wasn't built to any kind of standard. And so now we have issues there that it's just not fixable. But what our regulations say that we're trying to keep it from anything else happening. Now, we hope when they come back with these studies, they're telling us the truth, and that's the only information we can go off of.
Right. And, Philip, you and I have done business together.
All right, let me pause for a second.
We hope when they come back with these we hope it's the truth. Did he say that? Did I hear that right?
I think you heard it pretty close to right.
Now he's a developer, or a builder or whatever he is. Is he saying that is he saying that people don't do things on the up and up?
He said they hope.
So did am I reading it? Did he play the police jury card and blame developers?
Well, of course,
Did
they
I
can't
read
ever
that
blame
maybe right?
themselves. They just approve the plans and blah, 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 rubber stamp them, away they go.
Okay. Well, let's let Miss Strozier keep going, because obviously she's not going to let it go. Let's see what she had to say.
Okay.
And everything, I'm all for growth, okay? But the whole thing is, when this development was done, or when a church was done, or anything else that has been recently done, I would say within the last 10 to 15 years, gosh, doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. That is where our problems started coming from. We didn't have a whole lot of the water holding in the yards until this was put in. Okay?
Whoa.
And all of this. Every time concrete's added, it seems like we take on more water. I'm just saying, if my neighbors are 5 foot away from going under after a mild to significant rain, and apparently we haven't had a 100-year flood yet, then they're going to go under if we continue to develop and not take extra precautions. I'm not saying that a 100-year detention pond wouldn't be sufficient, but they're talking about it draining through our neighborhood. We're already having issues with our own neighbors' drainage draining through our neighborhood slowly. I don't need additional to that.
Eric, is there something else we could do to reinsure this problem? I know we've done the study. Is there something we could do, maybe a study through there, to see what we could do to benefit the older subdivision, and maybe hold things up? We hate to hold things up in developers, but if we have so many people complaining about water.
I don't know that.
Let me get this straight. They keep adding more subdivisions and thus more concrete, asphalt, etc. And they're surprised that they have water problems? How does that work? I mean, I'm no developer, but I'll just say this. Going back in time, back in the late 80s and early 90s, when we lived in Ruston, they built a Super One grocery store at the top of the hill, basically at the top of Reynolds Drive. My mom and dad, my grandfather's apartment complex was down the hill. We already had the Graham Shopping Center up there with all that concrete. So every drop of water that went through that shopping center poured underneath our apartment complex in about a 36-inch culvert. Well, then they added Super One. So now, instead of that ground being able to soak in all that concrete, all that water, and so when we had a flood in, I see, it was 2015, no, 95 or 96. Anyway, make a long story short, it sent enough water through that culvert that it blew the steel grates off of there, flooded two of our buildings. More concrete equals more water displaced. Anybody knows that.
You're missing the point. That's why the engineers are saying 100-year detention pond. That's going to take care of all this. That's what they're saying.
I don't think so. I'm no engineer, but I think they're going to have to pump that water somewhere.
Well, but the police jury's got a bad situation. So you've got a development.
Wait, are you defending the police jury?
Yeah, sort of, but
Okay.
not really. But I'm more talking out loud here. So back in the day, if somebody wanted to move out, I mean, look, it's what we're seeing with Bellevue water system. It's what we're seeing out there. The struggle there. People moved out to that area because they wanted to be away from the government. They didn't want government regulation. They didn't want oversight. They didn't want to have to worry about all the crap that you have to deal with living in the city, right? That includes flooding and concrete, the concrete jungle. Well, the city has moved out to this area and this subdivision. It wasn't built that long ago, but
it's in a river bottom.
Well, it is, absolutely. But
without the levee there, it would all be a flooded river bottom.
But the police jury approved the construction of this subdivision and they didn't even, there was no consideration of retention ponds and all that. Now, fast forward, you're having more development popping up. Yeah, they're a little bit ahead saying, hey, we need to do something about the water. But is it a long-term solution, or is it, the fix? No, it's not. It's not the fix, just building a retention pond for every development that comes along right up here, because ultimately this old subdivision is going to flood. And I ain't saying old, because it's really not that old. And Ms. Strozier pointed out that this has been within the last 10 to 15 years.
Okay, but this is not rocket science. I mean, again, I'm no engineer at all, but New Orleans, what does New Orleans do with their water? First of all, New Orleans is in the Mississippi floodplain, obviously. What do they have to do with their water to move it around? They got to pump it. That up there is all in the Red River floodplain. Without the levee there, it would be flooding like it's supposed to naturally do. The water wants to go that way. So retention, detention pond, whatever, they're going to have to start moving the water.
Well, who knew that they would have to do something about all of this, or that there's this problem? But
it should be blatantly obvious, especially to guys that are paid engineers.
Agreed. And actually, they're going to talk about that here in a second, because they're going to get called. They're going to get called out.
We all figured this out when we were little kids playing in ditches and damming the water up in a ditch. We figured this out.
I no arguments here. This ain't rocket science. Just what you said. Just what you said. I don't know. So anyway, so Philip, so did Philip play the police jury card or not? Blaming someone else. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. He's always got to blame somebody else.
All right. Well, let's jump to the 138 mark. Glenn Benton's going to take his turn at it.
Let's see here. Let me jump up there real quick. Here we go, and hit play.
The things that we can do. Approved, it doesn't even have detention pond.
Which one?
Plantation Estate Trust. See, it didn't. It's the one that's causing most of the problems.
I mean, it's done way before.
Yeah, it was before we started
up there at Plantation
requiring
Estates.
detention ponds and stuff like that.
What about this commercial development that you pointed out?
All right.
That was put in about.
Do they have a check? Do they have a blame checklist all in front of them?
So the problem is actually Plantation Trace and all those people that were there before anybody else. It's their fault that there's water problems, not the new developments coming in, it's their fault. So did he effective? I think he effectively played the police jury card. I think he played it well.
We need to make a police jury card.
That was a play that you get from experience right there. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but wait a minute. That's not the last of the police jury card trying to be played.
But wait, there's more. So 139.
Jump to the 139.
Part of this, Eric, you don't see anything wrong with this as our parish engineer that we're doing that.
Not for this development. Now, look, I will go back and remind y'all, as a jury, we came to y'all and said, look, we know there's some issues in Willow-Chute. We need to do more. Y'all approved a 100-year detention policy. You went from a 25-year policy to a 100-year detention policy in this basin to fix these issues. Or mitigate future flooding in this area.
So,
and if we change that, I mean, we can only enforce the ordinances as they are now, right, Patrick? So if we change that, we would have to make it 500 years for everywhere in the parish.
You could
which would
designate
virtually stop development, right? I mean, I feel like that's what we were told.
Well, I mean, you can do any basin in the parish that you see fit. It doesn't have to be a parish-wide, okay? But a 500-year detention policy is extremely difficult to achieve.
Well, they played the stop the progress card that time.
Yeah, so you're right. I guess Juliana played that card. So yeah, and but they're acting like there's nothing they can do. I mean, I don't get that. I mean, they try to put it off on the levee board with Willow-Chute. I mean, are the ditches big enough? Are the culverts big enough? Is there a big enough ditch for everything to drain off into and to go? I don't understand why the engineers can't look at this and say, hey, you know what? We need to build a flat river through there. We, or to drain all this crap off. I
Well,
mean,
look, they already have it right up the road from me. I mean, they don't even have to create a new mechanism. They have it in the way of, and I go back in the, let's see, was it the 2016 flood when it got so high? When they were pumping water out of the high dollar subdivision right over here and putting it in the Flat River, which in turn, of course, helped cause the flooding on the south end of the Flat River and caused people to have to wade out of the mobile home park down there. They got the pumps. I mean, they were sitting there running. You and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
Pump it.
So
move it.
So not to be outdone, but I saw somebody just put in the comments, and I already had it in the notes. Miss Brooks gets up and speaks at the 142 mark. Now, Miss Brooks, the interesting thing about Miss Brooks, she's been there since the 70s. And
Since Bell
she's got
Bottoms and
some
Paisley.
interesting. Yeah. Let's hear what Miss Brooks since the 70s has to say.
My name is Wanda Brooks. I live at 2210 Flowerbrook Road, and my property is the property that they're talking about. I have 3 acres of land there. We have a 2-inch rain or less sometimes. My entire property plus the churchyard that's adjacent to me is underwater, and this will show you. My entire 3 acres is underwater. When we bought that property in the 70s, there was cotton patches around and two-lane Highway 3 that the water drained on. And as things have been built around me, now I'm dealing with water in my entire area. About 3 years ago, I looked into seeing what I could do. I approached the parish. They told me there wasn't anything to do because it was private property. I approached the state, and what the parish told me was that it was not their problem. They agreed that the ditch between Flowerbrook and Vanceville needs to be dredged out, that the culvert under Vanceville Road is not large enough to deal with the water drainage. But I hired an engineer to come and look at my property to see what you could do. It's 2-inch drainage from the back of my house to Highway 3. That's all, 2 inches. It's flat. She looked into it, and she tried to help me talk to the state about dredging that ditch out, but nothing has happened. So that water has nowhere to go. It's there, and I'm just drowning in the water drainage since all the things have been built around me. So I would appreciate anything that you can do.
So the moral of the story here is if you're one of the original folks here, or you've been here for a long time, and you have undeveloped area around you, your interests take a back seat to the new development.
Right.
Consider your interests and this is the moral of the story to all of you watching. Your interests take a back seat to the new development, and the impact that it'll have on you, it falls by the wayside to the potential for the police jury being sued by somebody wanting to put a new development in next to your property. This poor little lady, not only did she contact the police jury, she contacted the state, and the state come in and said that your ditches and the culverts that are there are not satisfactory, needed to be dredged, needed to be enlarged. And all this talk about Willis-Shute and all that crap, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid here and missing the point. I mean, I've been told that by a police juryman, but is that not something they can do?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, what am I missing here?
I don't know. And so educate me or correct me in the comments or whatever, but whose responsibility is it? I mean, there's plenty of blame to go around, and we blame this development, that development, this landowner and that landowner, and blame the police jury, and the police jury blames it on everybody else. I mean, ultimately, maybe we got some developers type people or whatever watching now. Let us know in the comments. Is it the developer's fault? Is it the police jury's fault for approving these plans and signing off on them? And as we get more expansion and thus more concrete, and like that lady said, she's got, a 2-inch fall off for drain, it's a river bottom. I mean, let's face it.
Cheryl Strozier just made a post. She said she has tried for years to get drainage and water issues resolved. No one will do anything, but they still approve at 100%. I totally believe that.
No.
The police jury is approving things left and right, but when it comes to somebody who's already there, whatever, I mean, obviously they haven't addressed the problem. I mean, and they're just overlooking everybody here. I don't think they really care. I think all they care, what are they going to do? Stop, like Juliana said, development. You want to stop development? And we've talked about it in previous shows. Change through evolution, not revolution. All these folks want revolution. They want to keep on going. They want to just explosive growth. They don't want to do it slowly over time and managed and controlled to where you don't harm other people. I mean, I'm not saying they're heartless and they don't care, but I am saying they're unwilling to tap the brakes on development, and it begs
They're
the
being
question
reactive
why.
instead of proactive. So they're having to react to the problems instead of proactively engineering.
Well, they would say, well, we instituted a 100-year, flood retention detention pond policy.
Yeah,
That's
but they did the
that's being
policy.
proactive.
They did the policy based on 100-year floods, based on X development. But when they add Y and Z development into the mix, all of a sudden the 100-year flood plan's out the door. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
It seems to me that the people of Plantation Trace, some of the people out there off of Highway 80 and Halton, not enough attention. I mean, just like the water systems, there's no excuse if you're going to go in and you're going to take over a water system that affects as many people as what affects out there, in the village system and even the Bellevue system, that you don't know all the details of the system before you take it over. That to me is short-sighted.
Well, I don't know. It seems to be a never-ending problem, and since the city council's been quiet the last week or two, basically, we've turned our attention to the police jury and or more attention to the police jury and all these other things. It's just a never-ending can of worms.
Well, I will tell you, there's another citizen that spoke, and this will be the last one we show, Rex. And he may have communicated resolution to this problem, that since the police jury won't, address the existing people and they favor new development every single time, at the 159 mark, this citizen poses, and he did it in an amazing way. And you'll be able to tell by, you can tell all the police jurymen get pretty uneasy by his question, but play the 159 mark and y'all listen to what this citizen had to say.
I guess my main question would be is if things aren't necessarily adhered to or even maintained as far as the design goes, what would be the recourse when adverse effects do take place?
Good question, Eric.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean, other than if you're talking about lack of maintenance of a drainage system or a detention
I
pond.
think he's talking about
No, I
when
think-
it's being constructed, and he's talking about
Oh, got a little buffering going on. Hold on a second.
You have property standards. I mean, if you have complaints about things that aren't upkept, different.
Tom's also enforced a ordinance or a rule that when things get finished, we get pictures of them and make sure they're built like they're supposed to be built.
I mean, we have inspectors. I mean, the city, Bossier City will be inspecting this.
Yeah.
And they don't sign up. A lot of them are pretty tough about making sure that it's built like it's supposed to be built because they won't sign off on it.
And his question may also extend to if everything is built correctly, 100-year detention pond, and we don't have a 100-year event and it fails. Is that more what your question is?
What if what is in place isn't actually?
That's what his question is.
Just.
Well, I know we can, like on a road, we get it bonded. So.
Well, as long it's so, I mean, I don't know.
That's
how to
just
answer that question.
my interpretation of what he's asking. I'm just breaking it down to you.
If it's a subdivision, we hold the HOA responsible. If it's an individual commercial building, when we hold them
The
responsible
HOA
for maintaining the
responsible.
detention pond?
No.
Wow.
We're not talking about,
We're talking about.
we're
the
talking
science
basically
today.
try to think of it as product defect. Product is built to everybody's standards and all that, and it still fails.
Well,
I mean,
there's no.
I know,
There's no,
I'm just-
there's no.
All
there's no
any
rule
of them
against-
had to do was say, "Well, you'd have to sue us." That's the
Well-
simple answer. That's your recourse right there.
Does it seem like that this?
But
is a
let's
bunch
blame
of
let's blame the HOA.
We're going after the HOA. I mean,
We can blame HOAs for plenty of stuff, and that's a whole other show that we need to talk about at some point in the future. But I don't think the HOA is responsible for the drainage.
well, I mean, he asked a valid question. I mean, and again, I can tell you how this would go in Bossier City, because if you dare talk about filing something on the parish engineers errors and omission clause of their insurance policy for like Man Shack and the Shed Road thing, ain't going to happen. You're not even going to hear a councilman or the mayor even talk about it. They're not even going to breathe a word about it. No consideration of that. We'll even jump out there and blame somebody else for the faults of the engineer department of the city. So
Which
That ain't
dumbass
gonna
police
happen.
juror was it that said blame the HOA? Was that our good friend Doug Rimmer, or was that Glenn Benton?
well, the police juryman here, what are you going to do? You're going to sue the police juryman for enabling increased development without addressing drainage issues with existing infrastructure or existing residential areas? I mean, and Philip Rogers made a point. He said, developers made some of these things, built some of these things in the past, and then it's fast forward to the future, and the new developments are responsible for mitigating the mistakes made by the developers in the past. Yeah, but who made that mistake in allowing them to do that? It was the police jury. And here's the thing, Rex. Not most, but we've got the longest serving police jury member in the state of Louisiana on this police jury right now.
So he's been around a block of time or two.
And he's not the only one that's been up there a long time. And again, I bet if we took a walk down memory lane, the majority of the decisions that we're talking about right now, a lot of these guys have been in office. That a lot of this development, and that we're seeing some of the
Duke, you
side effects.
can't expect them to actually read and comprehend those plans. They just sign off on them.
I'm not saying it's their fault, but I'm saying when you ask for explosive growth, be careful of what you ask for, because you're going to get the side effects. And when the side effects come around, don't freaking blame a homeowners association or the subdivision that was the first one to be built. I mean, good grief.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, folks, but I think that HOA comment had to have been the stupidest comment I've heard the police jury come up with in a while, and that's saying something.
But Rex, we lie and deceive and what's some of the other terms that
Misinformation, rabble rouse.
misinformation, all the crap that we're doing right here, but we're just trying to, there's still 70 something people watching right now. How many of you do you think this could be you? What if you're next? What if the port, and remember we pointed that out, the port can go and do whatever they want to do thanks to your elected representatives. Talk to Alan Seaball, talk to Barrow Fancy Pants Peacock. I mean, they went and got the port the power to come and go and do, if they want to put a chicken plant next to your house, they can do it. The police jury, they say, oh, what Duke and Rex are saying is not true. No, it's freaking true. I can show you in the legislation. And there ain't a damn thing that you, nor even them, or even the city of Bossier. Case in point, I'm going to go ahead and what is that? Is it prognosticate? See, that's one of them big city words. I'm halting, but I've heard it used kind of that way before. So I'm going to use it. If it's wrong, English people don't hold it against me. But I'm going to prognosticate. Remember this Chasing Aces deal down there in Bossier City, Rex?
Yes.
And remember, it was all pumped up there that they're using their own money and, and the city's going to give them this land and all this stuff.
Right.
I got a source that told me that city's finna get squeezed out of that the port's fixing to come in there and put the money in.
So the port's going to be behind the Chasing Aces deal.
Financing, that's what I'm told.
Oh, well, hey, they got money to burn, plenty of it. I mean, there's 30
Well,
million. Depends on the source that you go with, but 62 million, 52 million, 30 million, whatever. What's a few 10 million among friends and taxpayers? But I mean, they got plenty of money to burn.
And that's something else that pisses me off. They all talk, all of them. They all talk about, well, that's the port's property. Well, that's the Cypress District's property. Well, that's this person's property or this government entity's property or asset, or that's their money, or that's the no bull crap. All of these people, all of these entities, it's all of our monies. We're freaking the ones that pay the taxes on all this crap, and they're picking the winners and losers. I mean,
sure.
What do you want to do? Stop development? You want to stop economic development? I mean, maybe you take the boot off of all of our necks, let us keep a little bit more of our money, our tax dollars in our pocket, to where we can improve our life. Maybe that's a novel thought.
Yeah, it is a novel thought. Very novel. Paul Johnson says if they're not careful, the feds will stick the whole north of Bossier in the floodplain, and then everybody will be required to carry very expensive flood insurance to finance a house. Rapides Parish is dealing with this, and some communities around Baton Rouge are dealing with this in a big way. That's a possibility.
Well, they got all that funding down there for that diversion canal on the Amite River. And now you've got one of their politicians down there, one of their representatives trying to get the money diverted to some freaking other stuff like a YMCA or some crap. And that's something else. All y'all better get ready in Bossier City because there ain't no way in heck the YMCA is going away. In fact, I'd almost guarantee you're going to have the YMCA coming back at you for tax dollars in Bossier City. And they're probably going to get it.
Surely not.
Ain't no way to stop them.
Well, they're like little children. They got to come back and ask for more cookies. Just because you told them to stay out of the cookie jar the first time doesn't mean they won't ask again. All right. It is now 9:15, Mr. Lang.
I had some stuff on the Bellevue water system, but we'll carry that over into next week's show. But I will say, if you'll go back to the folder from last show, I think it's cut 55, and we'll close the show with that cut. Because just like, all the stuff that we do, and that's why they don't like us sharing stuff on this show, is because when we shine the light on it, it enables everybody to be informed. They can say that it's not informative, but they'd rather we just went away and we just didn't talk about things, because then you wouldn't have no knowledge. But isn't this basically what we stand for, Rex?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the same old, Colonel Jessup deal. You can't handle the truth, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you show it, like you said, when we show it on the show, and look, when we're doing a bit of conjecture or speculating, we try to identify that and make it obvious, and we do a lot of that on the show, but we show a lot of the actual documentation to back up even when we're conjecturing. If that's the right word.
Case in point, JJ Lewis. Love JJ Lewis love him to death. You're a good friend, JJ. Love you, brother. But JJ says locking dams have slowed flow of the Red River. Sediment has filled, raised the bottom of the river. Nothing can hold the water like it used to in the past. JJ, I can show you a video at the police jury meeting where the water table guy and the police jurymen were all sad and beat down because the water well, levels they were monitoring in North Bossier, Willow Chute, ironically, and they were talking about that they were not able to make any correlation to the river levels and the water table levels around the Willow Chute area.
Well, but that's the water table levels. That doesn't equate to flooding necessarily.
Right, but I'm thinking that's what he was. One of the things
it's real simple. When you look at specifically the New Orleans area, and
it's freaking below the core level. We're 100-something feet above.
Well, not just that. When you look at what they're trying to, or what we've done with the Red River with the lock and dam system, and it is very similar to up here. Even though we're above sea level, it's still the same. When you put the lock and dam system in on the Red River, and before that, the levee system, this is a floodplain. The water wants to go to the floodplain. Period.
That's true. No, I agree with that. That's common sense.
And the amount of water and sediment that flows through the Red River, especially at times when the water's up, I mean, we got a problem. And everybody that's building, sorry, you got to hear this, but everybody that's building up in that floodplain and is built up there, guess what?
I'm just telling you, the cat that was reporting to the police jury and all the police jury, even Doug Rimmer, was like rolling their head that the guy was saying there's no correlation to the river. I'm just telling you. I can show the video. I can pull it up.
I know. I remember it well because we kind of had this discussion then too, something similar to it. But I'm just telling you, I'm not talking about bringing the water table up. Anyway, but I digress.
You know why I think the police jurymen were so dejected about it?
Why?
Because they weren't going to be able to lean on the federal government for more money.
They couldn't blame the feds.
That's why I think they cared and were dejected about it. They weren't hearing what they wanted to hear.
Well, back to, is that Linus, if I remember my Peanuts cartoons?
Yeah, I had that one plugged in for last show, but anyway.
Yeah.
It worked out for this one.
We'll end on that note, Mr. Lowry. As usual, we've got a little bit to carry over for next week. It's been a fun 2 hours and 18 minutes so far. We appreciate everybody that's been watching. We still got 50 some odd people that are watching over 2 hours, so that's actually really cool. We hope y'all have enjoyed the comments or the content, and we have enjoyed the comments.
Absolutely. It makes it a lot better when you guys engage on the topics and comment and let us know what you're thinking. I mean, look, because bottom line is we're just two guys with opinions just like you. I mean, debate and hearing your opinions and commenting on the things. I mean, hey, we can get a little closer to the truth and get a little closer to a resolution on a lot of issues and, kind of common ground.
And look, you folks know the drill. If you have some information you want to send us, want it to be anonymously, go make you a free Proton Mail account. Don't put any identifying information in it. Send an email over to bossierwatch at Proton Mail. You can go over to bossierwatch.com or .org if you want to donate some money or buy a coffee mug. Either way, we're still going to continue to do this each and every week. Some weeks we may skip a week, but we try to make up for the content. if we do skip a week, and we're glad to have each and every one of you watching and commenting. Tracy Martin's, hey, that's fine if you were late. You can go back and watch after the fact or catch the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Pick your favorite podcast player, and we're most likely there if you want to listen to the audio version.
Thanks. Have a good evening. Appreciate it. See you next time, Rex.
We're out of here.